Thank you for the opportunity. Well, I'm going to present an initial work about the dimensioning of bike sharing system using a system dynamic perspective. First of all, this project was made by the Dr. Eleazar Puente Rivera and I in the city of León, Guanajuato, Mexico. There is a city in the middle of the country of Mexico and has a lot of characteristics that can improve the use of public bike sharing systems. Well, first of all, I'm going to show you the world map about bike sharing system. Bike sharing system is actually really used in a lot of countries around the world, but in Latin America it is not as common as we want. For example, here is the biggest one systems. There is here in Denver, Montreal, Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, Barcelona, also Daejeon, that is in Asia, Milan and Lyon, there is also in Europe. As we can see, all the systems that we can have it around the world is in Europe, North America, and Asia. But in Latin America, it's not a common concept. We want to change this perspective. In Mexico, we only have 3 systems. One in Mexico City, that is the biggest one, that their name is Ecobici. There is a big system, but it's a small system compared with the total amount of population of the city. Then we have another system in Puebla and Guadalajara, but the systems is inside of the downtown, not outside of the city. Then we are trying to make big efforts to install a systems in León, but not as a downtown systems. We try to use a systems that will be established all around the city in order to improve urban mobility. Well, the basic concept of bike sharing system is sustainable transportation. It's try to move the people to use another ways of transport, improve quality of life, and reduce air and noise pollution, and other concepts that are very important. Well, public bike sharing systems has been adopted successfully, as we can see, in many regions of the world, but not in Mexico. Well, we are trying to do it. And this work is part of a project in León, Guanajuato, in Mexico, where socioeconomic condition and adherence of this society is really it could improve the implementation of the city inside of the not only the downtown. We can, as we can see on the study, we can implement the systems outside of the downtown. We choose 2 areas. Well, but I'm going to talk about in the next slide, where we use a system dynamic approach that involves something that will be very difficult. First of all, we assume, or we make an assumption, that we know the exactly location of the station. So, because it will be very difficult, because there are a lot of information about the demand of the system, but the people who already have a bike, not the people who want to use a bike sharing system. And this is because in Mexico doesn't exist the system, so it's really difficult to try to forecasting something that doesn't exist. So we use a dynamic simulation model for evaluation and determine the ideal number of bikes in in each station. We try to identify the station with the highest level of occupation and the number of parking slots. This is something that is important because if we want to encourage the demand or the use of the systems, we try to identify the exactly number of bicycles that the people need and the spaces, because if you are trying to use the systems and you need to pick up a bike, is something that is important is that the bike is already in the station. And if you want to leave the bike in the station, they must to have an available space in the station, even though you need to look out and find another station, but probably this will be very difficult for the user, for the daily user. Okay, and we make a final evaluation about unmet demand, service level, and system utilization. This is something that's very useful for us because it's a simulation of a non-existent system. Okay, the methodology that we already use was, first of all, we need to identify the demand. They have a lot of research of the municipal institutes in León for the municipal government that say us about the demand of bicycle or the use of bicycle, but the people who already have a bike. But maybe in León that will be not enough because we try to figure it out what will be the people who use a public bike sharing systems. So maybe the people who already have a bike will be not the same market. So we need to identify that. We use an ordinal regression model to identify the market size and the people who will be able to use the systems with the help of the Mexican government. And in the next step, we make an analysis about the CO2 emissions and use of energy that will be linked with the use of the system. Something that is very important is that this part of the methodology is still ongoing. We are just make a part of the research in different stage. So the next, well, not the next stage, one of the stages of the research is the dimensioning of a bike sharing system using a dynamic system perspective. That is the job that I'm going to present to. And it's the feasible points, the capacity, and the associated costs with the systems. That is something that is really important for all the information and for the municipal government too. And finally, the analysis and evaluation of the result. Something that is important is that all this information is an initial proposal. I'm going to talk about what happened next or where we are trying to happen next. Okay, this is our study case. This is León, our city. We try to figure out where will be the great location of each station. Okay, dimensioning, well, the most basic information that we want to figure out was the exact number of bikes in each point, and the number of parking slots and the utilization system. Well, actually, in the city, we have 82.5 kilometers of bike paths. That is really large kilometers of bikes for a Mexican city. And something that is important is that we try to increment the number of kilometers. For the next 20 years, the government tried to implement through 103 kilometers. So it will be good because it will be encourage the use of the system. But with all the research that we have done, something that is important is most that infrastructure, that is an important key for the use of the systems. The cultural behavior of the people is something that is really important and is something that we need to improve, and we need to work in educational programs for the use of these kind of systems and the benefits that could be bring for the society in Mexico, I mean. Okay, first of all, we divide our city in 23 micro areas. The purpose of this division was because we have a city that is home for 1.4 million of people. It's a medium size of Mexican city, but even though it is a very, very big city for our job. So we make an initial dimensioning using big areas to know what will be the total amount of bike usage in each areas. Then we select 2 areas for a specific pilot systems, or systems that could include just a few areas of the city. Well, the areas that we don't analyze is the red one areas. That is important to say there are dangerous areas inside the city, so it's not probably the good location for a systems, for a public systems, and for keep safe the bikes and the people. That is the most important. What will be the process? The inflow, we use information that municipal government has about people who already have a bike, but now in the last September we make a lot of surveys about what people think about the use of these public systems. And we discovered that in Mexico, most of the people don't know the systems, don't know that even exist. So this is something that is important. Well, we use this for demand forecasting. That will be very useful for the model. There is something that is very important. And then we determine the factors that measure the environmental impacts of the use. For Mexico, I mean, it's different in each country, but in Mexico is something that is important. The process, we make a dynamic simulation of the system behavior. We make an initial capacity of bicycle per station. We assume, in this initial dimensioning, we assume that the station has enough capacity. We want to know how many bikes we need to satisfy the 100% of the station. Then we made a different scenarios. So for the initial dimensioning, we established that we're going to accept, I don't know how to say, the 100%. We want to establish that we're going to have a 100% of demand satisfaction. So we establish an initial number of parking slots, number of bikes per station, and we simulate 1 day, 16 hours per day we simulate. And what will be the dynamic simulation assumptions? Well, the average speed is 15 kilometers per hour. The travel time is known. We don't use stochastic information. We use initial parameters that will be fixed. The demand is known using the master plan of bicycle path of the municipal government. And some of the model conditions will be 1 day simulation, 16 hours, 1 station by macro area. We know that 1 station by a big area will be not enough, but we want to know initial dimensioning. Then the next step is to choose an area and to make a simulation inside the area, probably using discrete simulation models, maybe. We use 3 scenarios: expected demand, lower demand, and high demand, and to know what happened with the number of bikes and the system levels and key performance indicator of the systems. We use dynamic demand function of time, and some of the factors that we analyzed was the quality of the service, the unmet demand, and the system utilization. Well, the reasons for using AnyLogic is graphic animation, the university designs, database connection, and modeling flexibility. Well, why our job is significant? Well, bicycle sharing system has been introduced as a part of the urban transportation of the municipal government, are used to reduce the use of automobiles, and this is something that is very important. Bicycle sharing system is for short trips. If the bike is traditional, is less than maybe 15 kilometers, because this is very important for the users, the connections with all the modes of transportation, with the bus, with the other. In Mexico, is not used. The people don't use to make a change in the way of moving. It's something that is, the people used to move in a bus or maybe by walk. But in León, something that is very special is that people used to move in their own bike, but not because they are aware of the environmental damage and other condition of the city. Is because they need to move in that way. So we want to change that perspective. We want to make an adherence to the systems and try to encourage the people to use because they think that is necessary or maybe feasible to use the system. Well, this is part of the concept that we call human city, that we are trying to introduce in the city, and the model is designed to evaluating a bike sharing system in the 5th largest city in Mexico. Well, the analysis of a number of different demand scenarios, we use a factor demand that we move and we make different scenarios of demand, the ability for changing several structural parameters. We want to identify the buses station in the systems to choose the area in which we want to work in the next step of the research. The utilization of each station is something that is important, and the visual displaying of the performance metrics. Well, this is the model. We have 23 models like that. We have an initial demand, we have inflow, outflows, and connections between all the stations. This is the initial parameters that we can move. We can move the number of bikes in each station, and we have a different factor demand that we move it around of the research, and we can make different scenarios, and we can compare all the situation for the systems. And then this is the final model in which we can see all the information if the system utilization, the number of bikes at each period of time, the number of parking slot, if the user comes at any station and doesn't have any bike, so maybe there will be a problem, because probably the person who comes to this station and doesn't find a bike probably never return or never use the system. And in a country that is not a common way of transportation, maybe there will be a problem because they want to use anymore in the future. So this is something that is important. And what else? Well, this is something that we want to know. Well, finally, in the second stage of this research, we select 2 areas. From these 23 big areas, we select 2. The northeast part of León, that is the part where is the biggest university, 3 universities, try to make a systems for more than 8,000 students. So probably this will be a good area for try to make a pilot of the systems, but the problem here is the topography. There is some of the problem of this type of systems. Well, we want to try with an electrical bike sharing, but maybe with a sharing with a small station and a few bikes. And we are select another area for the municipal government that includes the downtown and another zones near from for the downtown that use traditional bike systems, but I mean these pilots will be use a small system with a few bikes, but we want to try and what happen if the city start to use a system like that. So, well, maybe I think it's old. Thank you so much. Thank you.